Hi, and welcome to Suburban Garbage, my YouTube channel about tackling projects in my little garage here in the suburbs. This is my 1986 Celica GTS, and the video today will cover the upgrades and a brief ride along. Let's take a look at the nice car here. The paint job is relatively fresh and new. The major upgrade that I've completed recently was swapping out the old 3S GE for a 4th gen 3S GTE turbo motor. Here's the 2-inch exhaust that I had made for the 3S GE. The 2-inch is an improvement over stock, but it's still very undersized for the turbo motor. That was one thing that recently I've had to work around with a 2.5-inch cutout. But yeah, overall it's a great swap. I think the car's had a lot of work done to it over the years since 1986. A lot of small repairs and this and that done by me and the family. It has about 180,000 miles on the odometer, so the interior shows a little bit of wear and tear. The seats have been reupholstered in the last 3 years, so they look nice. The rest of the car is a little bit of wear and tear on it, but it's holding up good. It's still got Toyota quality. I always liked the interior on this. I think it was one of the nicer looking interiors from the 80s Japanese car era. You can see we need to tuck that boost gauge in a little better. Let's take a look at under the hood. So unfortunately, the hood prop does not like to stay under the hood, so I have to leave it remote and deploy it when necessary. But this gives us a chance to take a look at the what's underneath the hood scoop, which my brother and I used a 2-inch hole saw to radius the edges there. I tried to get it as close over the turbo or the intercooler as possible. We just connected the corners with an angle grinder. Took out a little bit of the hood bracing, but it holds up good. No major seat metal work is required. That tag's just showing that it was a 3S GE, the original motor, front wheel drive Celica through the 3S GE 2-liter. Now it's got the nice big intercooler on top. I'll just do a brief tour of the engine bay. You can kind of see my MSD tack adapter box in the corner there, and then I've got the fuel change relay that's part of the 3S GTE motor, zip tied up to the strut brace. Here's my intake that I'd fabricated. This is a 2 3/4 inch aluminum pipe that I'd welded a fitting for the blow-off valve onto. So that is my very poor attempt to do some aluminum welding. And you can also see there's a little connector on that coolant hose that's now running my fan. So that's just a regular temperature sensor connector that I had gotten off eBay, and that works pretty well. I tried to use as much of the factory kind of original Celica stuff, Caldina stuff as possible. Yeah, that's one of the reasons I went with the hood scoop instead of doing something like a front mount. Is I like the Toyota top mount, and I always thought the hood scoops on some of the older GT4s looked really good. So yeah, using the original radiator, I'd wired up a cheap fan from Advanced Auto Parts and had to wire in a new relay for it as well. One of the big parts on this is I'd actually used a Toyota Solara E153 transmission. I wanted to make sure that the transmission had enough guts to it to be able to handle the power, because one of the big downgrades of using the factory transmission, the S54, is it is fairly weak, and there's also no limited slip options for the factory transmission. So the E153 has a few different options for a limited slip, and I actually put a Quaife limited slip in this one, and I think it does really well. Now with my 2.5-inch cutout, it will break tires in first and second gear, so it's definitely, I'd say, a required upgrade is to have a limited slip. Otherwise you'd just be spinning tires into third gear, which, if that's what you want to do, that's what you want to do. I'd rather have traction. Well, let's see what it sounds like. Let's give her a start here. One thing I'll mention while we're looking at the engine bay, some of the fabrication parts I had to make in order to get the everything, I'll say everything, to fit in there. The engine fits in pretty good because it's a similar block to what comes out of the car, but the transmission, let myself rev it up here. The transmission is out of a Toyota Celica, and some of the mounts had to be modified a little bit to fit, and that was mostly done with a drill. It didn't require too much welding or craziness. I did have to fabricate the intake and downpipe. I ran a 2.5-inch downpipe to the 2-inch exhaust, so that's one of the reasons I have to do a cutout. One last look at the exhaust there, and then we'll take it for a test drive.